Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on, well, not really the Arrowverse or DCTV, though somewhat related, but mainly the CW. So, as most of us should know, especially if you're a reviewer of the Arrowverse shows, whether it be The Flash or really any of the shows that continued past that COVID period. So that's pretty much all of the shows apart from Arrow. The CW, or the majority of the CW shares, might I say, were bought out by a media company called Nexstar a couple of it's probably like 3 years ago. It didn't take effect until like a bit after that, with Warner Brothers and CBS holding on to a minority share of 12.5% each, or 25% combined, and then Nexstar controlling the remaining 75%. Now, really, ever since that official acquisition went down, where they were in charge to, you know, make decisions and decide what would or would not be continuing, the CW has just been like slowly, if not quickly, actually is slowly even the good term. It's quickly bleeding shows to the point where we have Superman Lois, the last DC show on the network, coming to an end around the end of this year, roughly. It might go into next year, but it looks like all the episodes will air by the end of this year. And of course, there's a handful of some, like another couple of mainstays like Walker and the two All American shows, but now that's also changing. Now, for me, as a viewer, I'm just happy that Superman Lois is getting their final season, and that they knew it was their final season before they even started filming, with, the writers and actors strike, those two strikes, adding a bit more time for the showrunners at least to plan in their head what would go down in this final season. So I'm not really concerned about that at all in regards to how that will play out, because they were actually given more than a fair heads up, a fair amount of time and a fair amount of heads ups, about their show coming to an end, and allowing them to put a nice bow on the ending of the show, if you want to put it. But there were some other shows that I just mentioned that were not announced as their final seasons heading into this season of TV. All American and Walker, they've premiered their current seasons early this year. I think they're both done. I'm not actually, think maybe All Americans, I'm not too sure. I don't know if they're still airing or not. I think Walker might be done. I might be wrong. I'm not too sure if they're still airing at the moment, but those two shows at least have already premiered their current seasons. With the other All-American show, the spin-off, that being All-American Homecoming, that's coming out soon. I did see that they released the trailer for that like a week ago, or like a few days ago or something like that. But now it really does look like the CW this time next year will be completely unrecognizable. Like, some would say that's already the case now, but it's now going to be fully unrecognizable, most likely by this time next year, which is mental to think about. And this video was sort of triggered, I guess you could say, by the announcement that Walker was cancelled after 4 seasons, and this was after a period of the CW sort of refusing to give a hint as to what the hell was going on with that show and what was going to happen, even to the point where the studio in Texas that it filmed at and the various locations that they use had to start dismantling the sets, even though there wasn't an official confirmation about what was happening with the show and hadn't been cancelled yet. But that did come out over the past couple of days. It now is ending, or now it's cancelled, not ending. And I don't even know if the show has a set ending in regards to, like, they were able to film a series finale thing. Maybe they did in case. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure what the situation is there, or the show's just going to end on potentially a cliffhanger or just a bit of an underwhelming ending. Now, I think for many, including myself, it's a pretty clear indication that the other two shows, the two All-American shows, are also gone. Walker was the most viewed show on the network. I think All American was more popular when you include the streaming side of things and even how it's viewed on Netflix and stuff. But on the actual network and the numbers they get, Walker was first, with I think Superman and Lois in second. I'm pretty sure Superman and Lois was second behind Walker. So for them to actually cancel their most popular show, and also something that stars a mainstay for the network in the form of Jared Padalecki, in the way that they did, it's pretty crazy, and people aren't happy about it. For me, I don't necessarily care too much because I didn't watch the show, I didn't have that connection, but at the same time, I go and look from the outside in and go, it's a bit weird. And yeah, you don't need, Smarty McSmarty Pants to come in and say, oh, hold on, business is business. Yeah, we know business is business. I've always agreed with that for the most part. But in this case, I think it's becoming pretty clear that Nexstar sort of just jumped at the CW purchase without actually realizing what they were taking on, and that it was something that necessarily couldn't be reshaped, and just how the CW's network has worked since day one and what people expect from it and the branding around it. So for those that don't know, I'm sure a lot of you guys know by now, maybe you didn't a year or two ago, but hopefully a lot of people know by now, but the CW was set up to it was never like intended to be profitable. Of course, if that happened, then beauty, awesome. But it was never meant to be. It was always heading into it with this sort of, it's not going to be a profitable network, as some other things are. It was always a facilitator or a vehicle to air content, TV shows week to week, usually 16 to 23 episodes, like a large season, depending on the type of show and all that in regards to whether it got 16 or it got 23 or 20 plus. And then you sell those distribution rights to places like Netflix for streaming and then international airing rights. So in Australia, for example, you would get all the Arrowverse shows like a few hours, like it was probably like, I think it was like between 6 or 7 p.m. Australian time, which was around like probably like around 6 or 7 hours after they aired in America on the same day. And that was like a big, like it was a big fast track thing. It was a big thing. So like they would advertise it a lot on those networks. It's like, hey, you're getting this show from America like really soon after it just aired in America initially. But the network was owned, in regards to the CW, it was owned by the two people making the content, Warner Brothers and CBS. So they got all the profits from that. And I haven't even brought up like DVD and Blu-ray sales and various things like that. All this stuff, all these things that would bring in that extra money that the CW wasn't doing, Nexstar gets none of it. They get none of it. They only get the stuff from the ads that's actually on the CW, which we know is not enough to be profitable. So it makes you go, why would you jump into it? And everything like that. I know it's beating, beating a dead horse and everything, and someone's going to come in and go, well, hold on, you didn't listen to what they were going to do initially. Like this was the writing on the wall. Yeah, we knew that was the writing on the wall. Doesn't mean the writing on the wall initially wasn't incredibly stupid. But we did mention back when this sale happened that it was a weird purchase because Nexstar was buying into something where there is really minimal to no profit to be made unless you own the content you are airing, not just paying that license fee to air on your network, which Nexstar was already trying to, undercut for the most part. And really, many thought it would take like 4 to 5 years minimum for things to take a turn, just because you take risks as a business and you allow things to play out in a certain way. Even if you are losing a bit more money, it's like, hey, we'll see how this goes, let it grow a bit. But it's been like 2 years or something, maybe 2.5 if you want to be generous. Like Nexstar in record time has managed to screw the pooch in more way than one. And as I said, business is business. If you need to, let certain shows go because they're not bringing that thing or that profit, fair enough. It's your money, it's your business. But none of the changes they've done seems to be really heading into the thing and a lot into like the green or anything like that. And a lot of the journalists are sort of like, a lot of their questions seem sarcastic. Like they really do seem sarcastic in interviews. When they're at like upfronts, like the past week, a lot of them just seemed like they were just drenched in sarcasm, as if they were talking to a guy that they knew was just rattling off crap, if you want to put it, like answering just lies for the most part, or just trying to like, polish a turd, if you want to put it. And really the only avenue that seems to work in regards to a profitable sense for the CW, I think, is the college sports. I think that's been okay for them from what I've read. But at the moment there is like, 1 day a week where they show college sports? Like obviously college sports when they're on, like especially if you include basketball and stuff, that's like on every day. But I think they're doing like 1 basketball game a week and maybe like 2 football games a week. And football's only on 1 day, I think, for college. So at least for what the CW does. So it's very, very minimal in regards to that avenue where there is potential profit. And over the past week, I have seen various like reminiscence posts, if you want to put it on Twitter or even YouTube. I think I saw some talking about the golden age of the CW and just a week-to-week TV thing, because nowadays you get maybe 8 weeks or 8 episodes or 8 weeks, or maybe they release the first 3 and then there's another 7 weeks of 1 episode per week, and that's it. And it's airing on a streamer. And even after like 1 or 2 weeks of it airing at the beginning and then maybe the finale week, that's the only time it is really ever talked about. And it feels like there's actually a community there talking about it. But back in the 2010s, really as a whole, it was a week-to-week discussion and community and fandom across various things. Not just the CW and the Arrowverse, but also other shows on the CW network, but other network TV stations as a whole. Like that doesn't even just include the superhero stuff or the comic book stuff, but just anything really. It just feels like that sort of waned away. And I think over the past week, you've seen some shows that have been going on for ages, like Young Sheldon and Good Doctor, I think the show is. Yeah, the I Am a Surgeon, whatever that thing is. They've ended. And they were like things that actually had some sort of community there to an extent. Probably not on the level of like some of those other shows and, situations I mentioned before. And people are really wondering whether that will ever return. And I honestly think the answer is no. Like, I don't even think that's really like a controversial thing to say no. Like, it'd be very surprising if it did return in any way. I mean, anyone with half a brain knew that streaming was going to kill various aspects of entertainment, whether it was just the the volume or like of bringing stuff in, or just people's expectations, like, oh, I don't have to watch it then. I'd rather when the whole season's out, I can just watch it there and then. Or, they just rely on the streamers and they just ditch network TV as a whole. Of course, we knew that was going to affect network TV or movies that it came out, but it's even just affecting the general conscience, if you want to put it, of people and how they look at things. But I guess there was hope that there could be a renaissance of sorts, because the Arrowverse, to be fair, did live through some of the streaming stuff, and then of course it just naturally came to an end during it. But of course, if it did return in like any way, shape, or form, it'd be very surprising. It had to be something pretty big to bring it back in. But then again, that would just be one thing. It has to be like a multitude of things, to the point where I'm like, it's probably not going to come back in any facet, to be completely honest. Now, of course, people wondering, okay, well, if it looks like both of these All-American shows are also going to go the way that Walker did, where they're cancelled most likely, what the hell is happening with the CW? Well, they've already rebranded it technically, where it's now not even the CW, it's CW, but I'm just so used to calling it the CW. I don't know. Like, I don't think anyone knows, because the thing is that they're able to run that network as just a rerun thing, like low cost, low thing. They can do that, but they won't be able to do anything to the point where like there's a deadline article outside of a deadline article that says the CW is sold to another place. That's the only thing. And I think the interesting trajectory would be if Nexstar does sell it. I think Nexstar's eventually going to have to go, because I think they're going to keep trying stuff and probably lose more money. So eventually they're going to have to try and sell it. The interesting thing would be, who do they sell it to? That would be the interesting thing. Do they sell it to a bigger thing, which then can bring more shows in, because then they can go down that avenue that Warner Brothers and CBS have done in the past? Or does it go to an even worse option, where it becomes like public access for the most part, where people hire in like half an hour slots to air their backyard wrestling show or something like that? It arguably could go down that path. Would be an awful path to go down, but like there is that potential avenue to go down. I did see like a lot of people wondering, like, wouldn't it be a smart move for like Warner Brothers as a whole, or Warner Brothers and CBS to do it again, or just one of them to go in and buy it back on the cheap? Because really they sold it just to get rid of the debt. So it was like a win-win for like Warner Brothers for the most part, because they could still air their shows on there, but they got that debt wiped away, and the same with CBS. So could they go in when Nexstar's like at a struggle point and just really wanted to get rid of it, and then buy it back on the cheap and they have a network again? Because it's important to remember, Warner Brothers doesn't have a network. They have TV stations like TNT and stuff, but they don't have networks like the CW was. Like the CW's in that same fold of like NBC, CBS, not as big as them, but in this that same area. So that would be very interesting if that were to happen, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But I don't know. I think we're probably going to find out over the next probably 12 months, but arguably even sooner, depending on what happens with some of these other shows and just how the CW, plans to run itself over the next, year or so. But that'll be an interesting point. But yeah, it looks like all the shows that were there, they're not going to have any remaining shows from when they bought the network. So that's pretty crazy to think. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on the show. Support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this. Did you expect this was going to happen with the CW after Nexstar purchased it, or do you think it's like spiraled down way, way faster than you thought it would have? Let me know in the comments and any other opinions you want to leave. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.